Greetings and welcome to Calm, Clear Conversations. I'm Christopher Johnson of Calm, Clear Communications, and with me today is none other than, I have to get this right because I have been told I do not want to incur the wrath of G. Welcome, G.
My name is a crazy thing, my friend. Christopher, thank you for the welcome and having me here today. I'm so excited to be here. I am Gehan Haridy-Ardanowski, or G for short, for obvious reasons, as I've been explaining to people for many, many years. So I've heard everything: G money, G dog, G fro, just G. So I'm honored to be here with you. So thank you for having me.
G just saying.
It's my hashtag, G just saying.
Okay. It all clicks together now. All right. So, G, we were chatting backstage in the green room where guests of Calm Clear Conversations enjoy the finest of snackery.
Delicious.
As we were chatting backstage, we were going over how we know each other. And there's like 6 degrees of Brenda Meller. A couple of years ago, I think. Mm-hmm. And see, good things happen.
Are you? Oh my gosh, you just channeled Brenda Meller. I feel like I have mentioned her name at least 5 or 6 times in the past 5 days alone. At least once a day in the past few days. Hey, Brenda.
If you say Brenda Meller 3 times, pie magically
appears. It manifests. The pie just manifests. And Brenda there to hold it. So yes, if I'm correct about this, Christopher, we met in her weekly Friday morning job search group. I want to say it was mid to end of 2020, and an amazing group of people and connections came from that, you being one of them. And I just commented this morning on a poll that was done about, friends on LinkedIn. I think it was through Danielle Guzman. So if anyone's watching, Danielle Guzman just did a poll, and I saw that this morning about at which point do your connections become friends. And of course the chatting started, and, people responded. And, it's an interesting thing about LinkedIn and just the magic that can come from, whether it's the job search or just reaching out in comments. Just sending a personalized invite to a person to make their day. So, yeah. But yeah, it's been that long. I can't believe how time flies.
Yeah, and part of that connection comes through authenticity.
Yes.
And how we interact on social media has changed. Before, it seemed to be, you can show a little bit of your personality on LinkedIn. It's a professional site. It is rather staid and stoic. But a little bit of personality is okay. And now it is just be you wherever you are. Or as John Esperian says, be consistent and have a consistent shape wherever you are.
Congruent. Yep.
Yeah.
That's what he says.
So, and yeah, John is another common buddy that we have. Now, I at some point, I would love for us to all meet in real life. That would be a fun thing.
I know they just had that big event in the UK, Leah Turner and I think Niraj, John, I'm sure, and I forget who was all there, but of course the pictures and the FOMO was real. But yeah, I really hope one of those, one of these days we all get to connect in some way or another, whether it's in a beachy setting or in the UK or in the States or wherever. But yeah, I will tell you, this is the next best thing. And, there's a lot of dispute at times about why people should engage on LinkedIn. And going back to, I know we're talking about this whole, connectivity and community and just engaging with people and really establishing relationships on here. And I can never emphasize enough, I would rather spend, and I just did this recently with the Kevin D. Turner. I posted about this, but Kevin D. Turner, who's pretty prominent on LinkedIn, he's a phenomenal person. You know, I've been following him, connected to him for about 2 years now. I think we connected end of 2020. And I posted on the fact that he and I, after all of that time, had the opportunity to meet, you know, IRL. And we only live about 20, 30 miles apart from each other. So all of this time, you know, when you take that, and I thought to myself, I would rather take, you know, part of my day out to go and meet a really phenomenal connection who I've, you know, come to consider a friend, than spending time sending out a bunch of random invites to people for no reason other than to, you know, foster those numbers, build those numbers up. That's not one of my values. And I'm very clear about that. So
it's not a numbers game, it's a connection. It
exactly.
is being connection. Or yeah. And so we both represent the D.
We do. Yes.
We do.
Yes.
And we don't shy away from controversy on Calm, Clear Conversations. No, we tackle it head on. One of the items in Detroit is coney dogs. Now, for the rest of the country, for the rest of the globe, Detroit has a love affair with the coney dog. What's a coney dog? Well, a hot dog with chili and mustard. That's it. There are two iconic, well, there are more than two, but there are two battling restaurants next door to each other in downtown Detroit, American and Lafayette, next door to each other. The controversy is, well, people think there's a wrong answer. So, G, what's your wrong answer to American or Lafayette?
My answer is neither, because I have never been to either of them. And in fact, and again, just a quick backstory about where I am in the world. I am originally from Metro Detroit, grew up on the east side, for those of you in the area. So yes, east of I-75 in Woodward, folks. Grew up there, moved to the west side later in life. And yeah, I grew up on Kirby's and Leo's, and I think National in Royal Oak. Later in life, George's Senate Coney. But yeah, coney dogs are just, it's the one thing I've been missing. I've been in Frisco, Texas, so North Dallas area for close to 4 years now. And I've only been back once, almost 3 years ago. I am craving conies. And I tried making them myself, not the same. With that chili, that cheese. Of course, I smother mine all the wrong way with the onions and the ketchup. And it just, it's wrong, but it's so good.
There's no wrong way to enjoy what you enjoy.
And what would you say, and for those watching who are familiar, what would you say, which one wins the battle?
The one with the shortest line?
Oh, very diplomatic answer. Yes.
No, and it's one of those, you know, we enjoyed them around, whether it's Lafayette or American or Kirby's or Leo's or National. It is, you don't realize it until you leave the area that is not how every other metro area is. Like, wait a second, you don't have a coney on like every other block? You have to go out of your way to wow, huh?
Well, you know what we do have here?
What do you
on
have
every
there?
other block? Chick-fil-A. And I remember when Chick-fil-A opened in the Metro Detroit area, I remember it was about 6 years ago at Somerset Mall in Troy. And I remember I was working with a group of people, and when they left for lunch at that particular point in time, they were gone for 2 hours because the line was astronomically out the door. And it's so ironic because now it's like I can have it delivered if I want, or I can go 1.5 miles to my, local Chick-fil-A. And it is the one thing that people love. And honestly, they're a great company. Just as a company, they're phenomenal, and they're not open Sundays. But yeah, so I know we could talk food all day long, but yeah, little things I miss here, even Middle Eastern food. And I'm half Egyptian, so I have that in my background. And even finding Middle Eastern food here that used to be on every corner, in Michigan, Dearborn and such, it's not as easy to come by. So yes, I am homesick, and yes, I'm going to try to get there hopefully in the next few months. So
Okay. Now, in terms of connection, one of the things that you are known for, StrengtsFinder and your
UMAP.
yes. So tell us more about both of those.
Sure. Oh my gosh. Well, I will try to abbreviate as best I can, but you know me, I get verbose. So 9 years ago, the day I actually got let go from a job, I learned about Clifton Strengths or StrengtsFinder. So think your top five. It's that conversation that periodically comes out. Took it a week later. So this was in 2013. Literally changed my life. It was language I could speak to. In recent months, I ended up getting certified through a process called UMAP, which expands upon that. And this is somewhat newer. It's been around now for about 4 or 5 years or so. Kristen Sherry, name dropping. She's creator of UMAP. She has written books. She's phenomenal. So definitely look her up, or if someone can drop a link, that'd be awesome. But Kristen Sherry created UMAP. And what it does is it takes the Clifton Strengths and expands upon that to incorporate your values, your skills, and your personality, what's known as the 4 pillars. And from that, it basically connects the dots on how and why we're wired the way we are. And it is light bulb, eye-popping aha moments for some people. And I have had amazing experiences already with, well, strengths for years, just in conversations, but with UMAP, it's just a whole new dimension. And that's why I encourage, if nothing else, and this is not a sales pitch by any stretch, that's just not my personality, but I really do encourage people to, if nothing else, go to Gallup and look it up. Take your strengths, $20 US, and reach out to me if you want to chat on it. I love strengths. I could have this conversation all day long with people. Not a Gallup certified coach, but I am a UMAP certified coach. So that's the difference. Strengths is the
Okay.
foundation for it. So,
Now, what are your top 5?
oh my gosh, they've shifted actually. So I retook strengths last year, and there's again dialogue behind that too. But my number one is now responsibility, which used to be my number 5. So it's responsibility, futuristic, same at number 2. Both times I took it. Significance is now my number 3, which I think was middle of the road the last time. Number 4 is activator, which means, I think about things, I take action right away. And then number 5 is my developer. So
Hmm.
again, my last time, I think I was actually on Brenda's show having a conversation very specific to strengths. And it was my woo futuristic positivity. And those have since shifted. But the key to strengths is when you know your strengths, and if you end up doing all of them, all 34. And I don't encourage that right away. Focus on the top 5 at first. And again, that's a separate conversation. But the beauty part of strengths is your original top 5 are never really very far. So my woo and positivity, right down there at 6 and 8. And my futuristic's the same. So I always think, which means for me, I'm very forward thinking. I'm very optimistic. I'm very driven. I keep it going and flowing. I never stay in the trenches too long.
Okay.
So now, Christopher, wait, if I may ask now, can you speak at all to yours very briefly, or which I know, or at least your number 1?
Sure. Mine, you know what? I don't believe there's any shock or surprise between my 5, who I am, and even the name of my company, how I present myself. So my top 5, learner, consistency, connectedness, and achiever. Oh, and harmony is the number 1. So yeah, I like things to be harmonious. I like people to be included and connected and comfortable.
And I keep telling you, you need an app. Your voice, your demeanor, your approach, especially in a very sometimes chaotic social media platform, it's very soothing. I think for many of us, I'm sure I speak for many. I forget who did the post recently, but I know I commented on this very thing. And I just kept thinking, Christopher, please get an app. I would love every day to listen to the soft, soothing sounds of your voice. for
Well,
inspiration.
we should make that happen. In a world filled with chaos and confusion, there's an app to calm you down and get stuff done.
Calm, clear, not to be confused with calm, but calm, clear communication.
Mm.
Anyway, you're
Well, yeah.
awesome. Love it.
Likewise, hey, see, this is why I enjoy hanging out with creative people because ideas expound and expand, and everything's wonderful and wondrous. So hang out with creative people like G.
Well, thank you.
Now, with the top five, after you have those, does that influence, does that impact how you interact with people, how you authentically connect?
Absolutely. One of the things that I learned too, and this is for me, my responsibility now that it's number one makes a lot of sense. And like I said before, and I'm just using me as an example, but this applies to anybody who, even if you're somewhat familiar, you know what? Actually, I'm going to stop myself and I'm going to give a very specific example of someone who took strengths just on a whim, if I may. And this is a quick one. And what the eye-opening moment was. So very long story short, a few years ago, a couple of friends of mine and I we went up north in Michigan to a cabin, my friend's cabin, and we didn't have TV. We didn't have a lot going on. We were just sitting around and talking, and I started talking about strengths. This was, again, about 6 years ago. My one friend, I still remember to this day, she took it. She'd never heard of it and took it. And I'm not joking. We spent the entire rest of the hours talking about strengths. And her number one was achiever. And it explained so much of her behaviors and her just the timing of how she works through her activities during the day. And it's language that when you know your strengths, especially for job seekers who don't always feel so secure, it's a quick win. It's literally, if you want to show yourself in the best light, you can expand upon that. And for me, my responsibility, again, it shows that I'm thoughtful. I'm very conscientious. I've always known that. And again, responsibility was there to begin with. It was my number five the last time, but my number one now, it's the focus of everything. And in fact, sometimes it's part of why I get stuck. It's because I want to ensure that everything for everyone is done the right way. I will not use perfectionist because I don't agree with that. But that's just a quick example of that. It's very powerful language that can be used in any situation. And like I said, for, three gals to be sitting around one night after dinner, drinks, whatever, we're just talking strengths, and they were so empowered by it. My one friend, just to this day, I'm sure she has it on the brain. I know she does, in fact. So my friend's from far away in Michigan, but yeah.
Well, yeah, there's one of the things you said in that is we should play to our strengths, really.
Yes.
So if we understand what they are, then it gives us a scaffolding, a foundation. It's like, oh, well, yes, I'm most comfortable doing things that way or coming from that point of view. And instead of trying to fight it, well, I need to be that or something different. I need to be inauthentic to get what I want. No, you need to embrace your authentic self. Operate from your own strengths to make a connection with others.
And it's part of why, and I share this quite a bit. When I first took strengths 9 years ago, I didn't download all of my 34 right away, but I shortly did thereafter. And my analytical came in right there at number 30. I was actually shocked it wasn't smack dab at the bottom at 34, which it is currently. It's since plummeted to number 34. I'm not an analyst. It explained greatly why I was so grossly unsuccessful in my role as a financial analyst for 2 years. It explained a lot. And again, and it's for anything in life. I think it's so important just in our communications with people. We know when, people might not necessarily, not be as, extroverted as the other person. Maybe if we have a better idea of their strengths, if we get to know them and they happen to use this language, and if we know enough about it, it's like, oh, well, that explains a little bit then. It's like that whole Myers-Briggs assessment, piece. What are your four? I'm an ESFJ. I've taken that thing 6 times at least over the past 20 years, and it's spot on every time, but you get my point. It's empowering language, and I think at the end of the day, that's all anybody really wants to feel is good about themselves, and confident,
Sure.
wherever they are, however many numbers they have on the platforms or what have you. It gets back to connection.
Exactly. And when you can operate knowing where you are, it's like, oh, well, you any of these tests, any of these um personality types give you a foundation where you can say, yeah, this is where my comfort zone is. Now, that doesn't mean that's where everything stops. That just means where you can grow from. And although, yes, I am an introvert, shocking, I know. The, hey, I love curling up with a good book, but understanding how I communicate with people, my communication style, and how my strengths play in my interactions, I can operate and connect from that standpoint.
Hmm.
I don't have to be, I will never be the extrovert at the party. It's not who I am,
Yeah.
but I can connect one on one with everyone at that party.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. And for me, it's my and I'm an ambivert, by the way. I again MBTI, Myers Briggs, for those who might not be familiar, but when you take that 16 quadrant test, and I get extrovert every time. I don't feel it. I enjoy being social. My number one used to be woo, but again, it's a strength that it works in specific situations. But if I had my preference, I don't want to be noticed necessarily, unless I have something specific and intentional to say, not just look at me. It's the whole numbers thing. Like, I couldn't care less about having 50,000 followers, if and 50,000 people knowing me, unless I have some value to add. That's my whole thing to it. But that's my responsibility, and it kicking in. I want to speak when I have something to say, and hopefully it will be enough to engage others as well. So
Great. Now, when coaching, how does that work? Do you Are you helping people understand how the UMAP applies and how they can use it?
absolutely. So there's different uses for it. Some people are, in the corporate world, they're considering making a job transition. There are job seekers who may not have a clue about what their strengths are, and even going to an interview, for example. And this is why, again, I'm not here to pitch it. I'm here really to emphasize the significance of your strengths, and from there, again, happy to help with that whole UMAP dynamic. But knowing our strengths, especially for job seekers and interviews, and I share this, Christopher, because this is how you and I connected initially. um, Having that language and confidence when you're asked that, what's your greatest strength and where can you improve? There's a way, and I say this because and I don't think I shared this in the beginning, but I am an HR professional, director, manager, guru, whatever. Not really guru, but you get the point. There's 80 different HR titles out there, but really HR professional. I do a lot of recruitment and have for years, so I've been on both sides of the table. And I'm the recruiter who wants people to win in the interview, right? So I try to not ask the question and frame it in the weakness way. It's more of, where do you feel, first of all, what are you energized by? What are your strengths? What are you really good at? Like, what do you feel you can bring to the table? And then if there was something that you could improve upon, or we could help support you with, what have you always wanted to say, oh my gosh, I wish I could do this better? You know what I mean? To have that sense of optimism, not what's your biggest weakness. I don't want to know your biggest weakness. I don't want to know what makes you, necessarily cry at night, but how can we, recruiter and HR, help you, in this role? So I'm a big believer in our best selves, and that everybody has a place somewhere. And that's the part of UMAP. It really helps solidify that. It connects the dots. So strengths is the foundation, and then the UMAP connects the dots. So
Now, is there a team component? So, do teams, um, is there an aspect where understanding the makeup of a team from a strengths or a
mhm.
UMAP standpoint gives you a better team.
There is absolutely in both UMAP and on the strength side too. And again, that's more corporate based versus again, if we know our individual strengths, that's the dialogue that we can have coming into the picture. Whether or not companies decide to embrace this, I will tell you, I've been very fortunate over the years. Before UMAP, by the way, because UMAP is in recent years, probably like I said, over the past, I want to say 4 years, 5 years, something to that effect. I want to say 2018. So primarily with strengths, especially, I mean, again, we'll use my analytical and, harmony as an example. I mean, like analytical for me, I'm not an analyst. Harmony, is your number one. I'm a woo, you're harmony. If analytical falls low for both of us, then we know that we're not going to be successful necessarily or our greatest best selves in that role. So who else on the team can fit that mold? And that's why assessments like this I believe in. And assessments is a whole other discussion topic, and I am not an expert, nor do I want to be. Again, it's the analytical part of me that's just like, I don't need to know all that. I just need to know what makes me my best self. You know what I mean? And that's what I would hope for anyone. But yes, there's a way that companies can incorporate strengths and UMAP into their day-to-day.
That's good, and that helps people fit where they want to fit and how they want to fit.
Exactly.
Now, there are comments and questions in the chat about learning more about strengths and UMAP. And if people want to get in touch with you and connect and find out more, the best way is...
Well, and again, and I love that I'm looking at those in the chat, which I'm just seeing friends here, and that's for you to shout out. But I mean, honestly, I'm saying Gabe and John and Brenda, like, all of you in chat. First of all, thank you for being here today for Christopher. And yes, I'm his guest, so I'm thrilled to be here. But I get this from both, John and Brenda especially, but I've been on this rant for years. The whole piece of connecting. I live and breathe on LinkedIn. I actually shut down my Facebook account a few months ago. I may open it again or start a new one at some point in the future for business purposes. But I love LinkedIn. Again, going back to that really, a connectivity piece of everything. So I live and breathe on here. DM me. You can DM me. If you do send an invite, I'm going to tell you right now, I am going through my generic invites or naked invites as they're referred to sometimes. And depending on the day, I might delete them. I might look at a profile and bounce it back with a question. I may skip over you. So if you do want to connect, if you've got questions, if you send me an invite, I'd love to connect, but just include a note with the invite. So again, I give that to John and Brenda with the intention piece. And I thank them for that. And I thank everybody else on here. And that's the best way to connect. But I do have a website. It's a landing page really otherwise. But again, I'm not here to pitch or sell. Happy to talk strengths and UMAP all day long, though. So that is one way to my heart if you want to have those conversations. But other than that, just about being authentic on LinkedIn, boosting your profile, just look me up. And if you like what you see, feel free to shoot me a note.
A personalized invite. And see, here's one of those things. After you're connected to an individual, you can exchange voice messages. It doesn't always have to be a text note. And that's one of the things we were talking about beforehand. The ability to send a vocal message, I think, is great.
I love voice notes too. I think if there's a lot of information, sometimes it depends on the situation. I love following up with connections with a voice note. I am trying being the operative word here, to get better with the video piece of it, because I know some people are really awesome at sending those video notes. And again, they're like, hi, it takes just a few seconds because we're limited to folks. So if you're verbose or anything, just be mindful of that. I'm the worst with voice and video, but again, just a hi, so-and-so, it's great to connect with you. Looking forward to seeing you on LinkedIn. Takes a few seconds, or just an audio note.
Mhm.
Love audio notes. I love more personalization. I think it's important to, have that dialogue starting somewhere. Going back to Danielle Guzman's post or her poll this morning, it was very thoughtful. And it really does make you wonder, at what point do we become friends? Who do you consider your friends on this platform, was her question. And at what point does that, does that resonate, and become a reality? And I can truly say that there are some people on this platform I'd rather, spend, like I said, that whole Kevin D. Turner down the tollway thing. I'd rather take a couple hours out of my day to take that time than to spend 100 useless connect with me because someone says that that's what you need to do on this platform. I don't subscribe to that. So again, more preaching, but that's just me, and everyone's got a different feel. That's the beauty of LinkedIn. There's no right or wrong, but there's a tasteful way to do it. And that's, pretty much what
Abs-
I preach. So
Absolutely. And people being their authentic selves, that is what really cements that connection. Your post, because you come across as a energetic, full of woo person. It's like, oh, I have to. When I see a post, I want to engage. I want to know more, and that is what makes that connection. So, although we have not met yet in real life, yes, you're someone I look to on this platform. You're someone I know I can send a note your way.
and it'll make my day even better if it's a voice note with that silky smooth, I think is how I put it. It's that silky smooth. It's that silky smooth. No,
Is
again, it's your presence. And I agree. And that's why I think keeping those connections, that's my biggest question with people is, okay, so you want 50,000 connections or followers, whatever, because we're capped out at 30,000 technically. And I just recently learned actually from Kevin D. Turner in an audio room why that is. So that was interesting. But we are capped at 30,000 connections. You can have all the followers in the world, but the question I always pose to people is, why do you need that number? What does that number mean for you? And what do you plan to do with said number of followers and connections? So again, it's intention, and it goes back to, what we're really here to do. If you're here for LinkedIn just when you need a job, then it won't serve you well in the long run. It may help temporarily, but I encourage people at least a few times a week, even if for a few minutes in comments. It goes a long way. So
it does. And yes, I encourage people to be active on the platform because being active on the platform keeps you engaged on the platform. And being engaged keeps you top of mind for when those friends and allies need or have something that you can benefit from or something that can help out others. So when you see something, it's like, oh, G would be perfect for this.
mm, I
So
love
be
it. And there's no better feeling than when we can do that for each other. When people rally behind really deserving people for whatever the reason may be, whether it's a job or, they're in a hardship, financially, or, their illness, or they're looking for referrals for medical assistance on the other side of the world. I mean, there's just so many amazing things that can come from this platform. I've been on again, and going back to the numbers, I've been on here since 2008. You can't tell that necessarily by my very, relative to other people who've been online that long. You can't really tell that by my number. But again, my number is, I'm thrilled and honored with my network, and I'm very intentional with whom I connect for the reasons that I mentioned. So yeah. And again, this quality conversation I'd have any day over sending out, 50 meaningless invites just because someone says that's the right thing to do. It's like, what are you going to do with
absolutely
that? So
same. And so then, yeah, take the Strengths Finder, find your comfort, find where you excel at, find where your natural inclination is, and operate from there. Be authentic in your connections, in your connection request. Connect with G with a personalized note.
thank you. No, I say again, because it'll get lost, and as I always say, and I've been saying it for years, hashtag connect with intent. It's connect with intent and wow your recipient. I'm a big believer in it. And yeah, I thank you for that.
Right.
Am I talking too much? Are we out of
Not
time?
at all. No,
The
no. All
time
right.
has flown. I just realized
Absolutely.
that.
I have a question.
Please.
Um, the connect with woo, if I'm not a woo sort of person, can I still like go out there and connect with folk?
Well, you know
I
what?
mean,
You can woo anyone just by being yourself and not being
oh,
spammy, not being snarky. May I use a really quick example of something that happened the other day? And
of course.
I did a post and it didn't get much traction, and that's okay. It's okay. But I did a post a few days ago. I'll give you a great example of connecting really quick. If you go to my immediate feed 2 days ago, I did a post about how someone connected with me a couple years ago, and they must have sent a generic invite, and I replied to it. I actually went against the grain. Thanks so much for connecting, or however I phrased it. Not sure what prompted you. Look forward to keeping in touch. Let me know if how I can ever help. Whatever I said at the time. The response was, "Will do, thanks." Not, "Hi, G, thank you. I appreciate your connection." Nothing. Crickets. 2 years later, I just got a spammy message the other day in my DMs from this person I hadn't really heard from. "I just published a book. Would really appreciate you, sharing with your network." Not, "Hi, G." Go to my post for the context, but I mean, you can guess where that DM went. It went to archived. I could easily help support someone with an ask like that. If I know the person, if I'd been connected to them. But and you'll see it. I'm not going to get into all the comments and such that came through, but you'll see that it did get some traction, and there were some very interesting comments that backed me 1,000% on that. Again, it's being intentional and non-spammy. And then the same day, I got an amazing message from a new connection that just warmed my heart. So you don't have to be wooey, just be decent, non-spammy, non-creepy.
Non-spammy, non-creepy,
Yes.
be human.
And don't pitch me something for sale immediately after, because it's a turnoff. So those are very basics, but you'd be amazed at how people don't connect that way. They don't, because they may not know. So we just need to keep having the conversations to remind and teach them.
That's a good place to draw to a close this conversation. So again, people should reach out with a personalized invite. If you have questions about uh, you, wait, not StrengtsFinder, but
Oh, UMAP,
UMAP.
of course. Oh, sure. Well, okay. And again, because it's clear as mud at times, I know. And again, that's why I'm trying to, as part of my marketing, I'm getting better at, because I'm a newer coach to it. I've been on strengths for years and years. But with UMAP, again, it connects strengths to the other pieces of it. Happy to talk through, walk through whatever I can do. But they're two different things. But the strengths piece is the foundation. And I actually have this handy dandy diagram it's actually on my profile. If you can, I don't even know if you can see it, but it's actually, if you go to my profile and if you look at UMAP, it talks about the 4 pillars, and Clifton Strengths is number 1. So it's the foundation, and it's where the most work is done. This does not break your bank, by the way, to do it all. But if you even just want to do your strengths, I can talk to you about that. And that's just $20 at Gallup. But again, I can walk you through what might be the best approach for you. So again, I'm just here to educate. I'm not here to spam you with sales stuff, but
And I'm here to learn and have conversations and make connections.
love it. I love it, Christopher. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate.
Interested in learning more about any of the items that you've seen in today's session? Leave a comment below. Interested in being a guest? Leave a comment below. I help event planners and organizers produce virtual events. Learn how I can support your virtual event by connecting or leaving a comment. Thanks for watching.